So, hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast. I'm really excited about today. As most of you know, the last couple of weeks we've been doing a lot of replays of interviews of people interviewing me. So you haven't had much time of me presenting you stories. So today is going to be a great day because I'm starting to come back to what the reason I originally started this podcast, and that's really to share real life experiences and stories with you that happen to us all the time here in China when we're sourcing products, and talk you through the event, what happened, and give you the background story, and then really kind of discuss what went wrong, what we learned, and what we could have done to prevent it. And something I'm really excited about today is we've got Kevin joining us. Kevin's my new co-host on the show, which I'm really happy about. Say hi, Kevin.
Hey, how you doing, David? As you can tell, we're both from the same country. Our accents are interchangeable.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, I'm so glad you're joining the show. It's going to be great. I think having Kevin co-hosting is going to be hopefully a way of Kevin asking questions and extracting the most information out of me. So I do realize sometimes I ramble on with things, and maybe there's some pending questions that I haven't been clear about. So I'm really excited about this.
Well, I'm looking forward to it as well. And it's just an opportunity for, the adage that says two heads are better than one. So hopefully between the two of us, we may have a complete whole.
Well, that's the idea. I hope so. So, Kevin, today's show actually is quite interesting. It's about failing in India and what to do. This is a real story about a client I had. I don't know if I really say failing in India as much as I'd say the real question came up was he started in India because he wanted to source products in India thinking it's cheaper than China. And it's really an interesting story, and I thought it'd be a great one to share.
Well, it is an interesting topic. And I think the whole idea behind, historically, China has been the big player, when you wanted to, have something sourced offshore type thing and products created. But other countries have kind of stepped in the breach a little bit. And India is another one that's kind of coming on the world stage. And so I'm really interested to hear the differences between, your experiences in those two countries.
Yeah. So, and I think you're right, especially with the trade war tariffs, more and more people are asking the question, should I be sourcing outside of China? And I think, the story of Kevin and what happened with him was he was looking for some ceramic ware and some crockery. And, he heard that India was cheaper than China. And he also heard that India can handle much smaller MOQs, which the minimum order quantities. So he popped online, as most of us would do ordinarily, and started searching for manufacturers in India, found a couple, started talking to them and communicating with them. And I've got to tell you, Kevin, he was just so frustrated. It started off really well, the communication. And then just when he started getting samples and started getting follow-up, he just kind of, the communication just started dwindling down, and he just grew more and more frustrated. And that's when he kind of turned to me and said, what do I do, David? I'm on the right track here. And we ended up having a long discussion about it. And I thought, I'm sure what he's experiencing, a lot of people experience.
Does that happen a lot, that people try to do it on their own and then figure out that, hey, I don't have the expertise and I'm running into some problems, and then they circle back with you? Or, where do you come in the equation?
It's a combination of things, really, Kevin. It's, I think some people, of course, and I believe, by the way, that everybody should try it on their own. I think sourcing products and developing products really is a journey. And you have to experience different things yourself to really understand the nature of how things work. You turn to people like us when you don't have time, or you need extra help, or you're uncertain and you need some expertise that maybe you don't have, or experience you don't have yet. But I think, what I like about Kevin's journey, sorry, not Kevin's journey, Chris's journey in this case in India, was it really made me reflect on a couple of things. And that was, what we ended up speaking about the whole time was, is the cost of the product really as important, or is it the most important thing? As, based on the experience he was having, bad samples, bad communication, lack of certainty with the manufacturer. And what I really realized is what he's experiencing in India is no different from what a lot of people experience in China.
Yeah.
it's really the same thing, and just the same rules and principles apply. It doesn't really change, and there's a kind of a few key takeaways. And I think kind of for me, what's important, and just listening to Chris's story, is that communication is really critical, no matter what you're doing and who you're dealing with. You need to know who you're dealing with, and you need to be able to communicate with them. Now, I'm not saying trading companies or manufacturers are better or worse, and that there's a golden rule of thumb. There isn't actually, but the golden rule of thumb for me is really knowing who you're dealing with, whoever they are and whatever they are, and just being able to communicate and have the right level of relationship with them. Because if it's bad at the beginning, it's not going to get better over time. I think that's a misconception. I think part of the whole sourcing process to me is actually people say, how do you vet and filter your suppliers? And to me, that's exactly how you do it. The key thing for me, besides fancy factory audits and site visits and technical capability assessments, that's kind of, for me, something you do one day maybe. The fundamental thing I do is just how well they communicate, how well they prepare things, how fast they get back to me, how responsive they are they transparent? Do I feel like there's something shady going on or suspicious? Or do I feel that they're quite transparent about who they are, their company, their background? They introduce me to other people in the organization. You've got to get, it's like any relationship, you've got to get that level of comfort.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean, I
kind
love
of,
that point. Yeah, the
yeah,
whole idea around the just communication as a whole and how
yeah,
important it is. But let me ask you a quick question as you were talking there. So, how important is it to, even above communication, to actually have a trusted partner? How do you find a trusted partner if I don't have a David Hoffman to step in the breach, for me? How do I
yeah.
how do I vet someone? I mean, I love the idea you talked about. You know,
I,
you may save a little money on the product, but is it really worth it in the long run?
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, in terms of finding trusted partners, I think it's like any relationship you get into, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, you literally just start making contact and reaching out, whether it's online or whether you visit the place, um, and you meet people and you talk to people and you communicate with people. And like any other relationship, you find out and you feel your way through it, and you start building a bond or a connection with people, and find they think about things the way you do, have the same values you do. And it's no different from a normal relationship. You just get out there and you talk and communicate. And I always say the expression, you kiss a lot of frogs until you find your
Till you
princess or
find the
prince.
prince, there you go.
Yeah. And that's really what it's about. And I think when I was talking to Chris about this issue, um, like what interested me the most was he was convinced that India was cheaper on ceramics for the types of products that he wanted. And they may be. I don't actually know, because I haven't done a lot of research into India. But there's a reason for that, because I believe that the actual cost of the product is not always the most important thing, because what the price you're paying is not the final cost of the product. And
Oh,
a
for
lot of
sure.
people
Yeah.
forget that,
Yeah.
right? So if you go, maybe your purchasing price is lower, but there's shipping, there's logistics, there's communication. And the biggest thing is there's quality and time, right? There's two things that you really can't escape. And how long is it going to take to get things done? And what's the quality of the product going to be? And if you don't have the right partner wherever they are in the world, it just doesn't matter. There's going to be so many costs you haven't thought of, from returns to delays. And those are really the real cost of the products. Because if you're late for products, you're late for shipping seasons or promotion seasons, you lose that turnover, you lose that revenue. You're going to pay higher freight rates at peak seasons. If you've got a high return rate on a product, it's just going to come back. You're going to have to deal with customers, deal with unhappy reviews, and you can't put a price on that. So I, kind of always say, don't focus on only the price of the product. There's a lot more to it. Your margin is inflated if you're buying at a low price, yes, but what's that long-term cost going to really be? And I think that's where your key decision has to be, right?
Yeah, I love the idea. I mean, you touched on it that the the production cost of the product is not the final cost of the product, and you have to
Absolutely.
deal with returns, you have to deal with late deliveries, you have to deal with all the issues surrounding the product itself. So, you touched on a couple of key issues. One being, communication is so crucial. How
Yeah,
not only how they communicate with you, but how you communicate with them, and clearly outline your
exactly.
expectations. But then the second is, cost is not the only issue to be concerned with. What else did Chris need to have in mind, when he's trying to deal with this?
Well, I think just in general is you don't know what you don't know.
Mm,
And I always say that, because when you're dealing with the unknown, you try and cover all the bases, and it's just really, really challenging. So, I always just say to people, step away. If you don't know, you don't have the levels of comfort, you don't have a great way to communicate, move on. You got to really feel comfortable. Don't fall into that. I really need to make this happen, or I'm failing. And that's whenever I do these podcasts, what I really like to do is kind of reflect on a story and kind of frame it up and say, was this story or the journey this person went through a success or a failure? Because I think people misinterpret those successes and failures a lot. So if I look at Chris's story, I actually 100% think his journey he went on is a huge success for him. Contrary to the fact that he didn't get the product, he had a terrible experience dealing with India, and ended up coming to China. It's a massive success because, for me, he satisfied himself that he can't make India work. He tried, he's got the knowledge, he's got the experience, and he's not sitting there wondering, oh, should I be doing this a different way? It's going to be cheap in India. Did I make the right decision? And and sometimes it's because he knows what not to do. He's got a lot more confidence now in what he's doing is right and the right decision for him. And that just doing all that homework and really understanding it is, to me, kind of the key, because success is all about having certainty in what you're doing and not having doubts about maybe you should have done something differently. So that experience, to me, is a huge success for him.
I mean, what a great way to wrap up the story. The idea that we may see on the surface that it was a failure, but the two key points you just mentioned there. Number one, that I mean, he gained invaluable experience in the process, and the second thing he learned was really key moving forward, was that India is not the best option for him.
Yeah,
That China may be the best option for him. So those two things, that if and those are PhD level experiences to take
yeah.
away, in just this one story.
Exactly. And it's not even to say that India is not an option. It just means it doesn't work for him because he doesn't have the right people there. And
Right.
maybe you
Yeah.
continue on the journey. Who knows, right? I encourage people to get out there and explore. You know, you can do things 1, 2, 3 times until you get it right. But you do have to make sure that you've got the right resource and infrastructure around you. Um, and that's kind of the takeaway from this. It keeps coming back to the same thing for me. The other big thing, just reflecting on it now, is what we don't know, and I truly believe this, is why it's such a success is because he's probably stopped and prevented a disaster waiting to happen that could have been a lot worse. Right now, all he lost is maybe 2, 3 months of time and a little bit of frustration, which really, in the big picture of things, is not a big deal. If you waste 7, 8 months, get a terrible product, or never get delivery, or pay for a product and it comes and it's wrong, you know, that's where you really start losing. So for me, homework and time is all about experience. So, for me, I love to share these stories because I think, hearing other people's stories shortens the learning curve. And that's really what this podcast is all about. So I hope you guys have all listened and learned something and got some takeaways from it, and do your thing. And remember, reach out to us anytime you need the help on the ground in China. That's what we're here to do. Just give us a call, go to our website. I love talking to people. It doesn't cost you anything to give us a call and see how we can help. We'll see you guys later. Cheers.